This might be one of the most important videos you ever watch when you think about habit change, because this is about how to break bad habits. Bad, well, bad's subjective, but it's maybe a behaviour that you choose to want to manipulate or alter or even stop completely. This is a neuroscientific approach. It's supported by the science and the literature. It'll feel counterintuitive, but it works. Changing habits is tricky business, but knowing how it happens and how you can actually apply a systematic approach to it and not a ramshackle and random approach means that you've got a much better chance of success. You might know how to grow new behaviours if you've been following some of the information on this channel or this set of videos. If you're not, you can have a look at how to do that, and there'll be other videos explaining that again in the future. This process is about breaking bad habits. Habits related to pain particularly, but you can use it for anything. And if you're interested, then you're going to learn a little bit today that might help you a lot. My name's Drew, I'm a physio. I'm based in England, in the UK. I help patients reverse the process of persistent pain through looking at the habits linked to their pain. That doesn't mean you sit in a room and close your eyes and meditate them away. It's habitual breathing patterns, habitual movement patterns, habitual thought patterns, habitual emotional reactions. And each one of them puts the other into a tailspin, so you get this cascade, this loop that actually makes someone feel stuck, and in the presence of persistent pain the person is stuck. So if you feel stuck and you're interested in reversing that process, then watch on. If you're interested in videos like this or similar content, then click on the like or subscribe and keep up to date with ways how to maintain and change the experience you've got and take you on to a life that's liberating in helping you free yourself from persistent pain. Breaking bad habits. So take it really simply as one activity gets associated with another activity. When we are born, that is not known. There's instinctual reactions. But as we learn that this happens and then this happens, something happens, then something else happens, and then we associate them. Consciously you might associate them, but unconsciously it happens much, much faster. The brain wires neurons that fire with a couple of different things and they attach to each other. So if this fires a lot, this neuron, this recognition of the brain, and this one appears consistently with it, the brain wires them both together. That means whenever A happens, B is likely to happen. Often when B is happening, A is happening too. So they almost can feed each other. If you think of the book, if you've read my book, The Pain Habit, you might remember a chapter called Smelly Margaret from Darlington. Now there is no such lady called Smelly Margaret from Darlington. It's a fictional character. If there is a smelly lady in Darlington called Margaret, I apologise for using your details. But think of those three words, Smelly Margaret from Darlington. She's smelly because she worked in the fish shop on North Road, and she's Sheila's friend who works in the grocers. Now can you see how we associate a few things with a bit of humour? So Smelly Margaret from Darlington, Sheila's friend, Margaret works in the fish shop on North Road. Smelly Margaret from Darlington, Sheila's friend, Margaret works in the fish shop, Sheila works in the grocers, and Margaret's in the fish shop on North Road. Smelly Margaret from Darlington, the fish shop on North Road. Now, you don't have to know that this is make-believe to now know your brain's made some associations with what I've just said. Because Smelly fired with Margaret, Margaret fired with Darlington, Darlington fired with the fish shop, and the fish shop is on North Road. Margaret's friend's called Sheila, and Sheila works in the grocers, so they're starting to wire them together, whether you like it or not. So clear your mind. Do not think of a smelly woman from Darlington who works in the fish shop. Do not think of that lady's name. you won't be able to think of anybody else's name because your brain has started to associate this with this, with this, this with this, with this, this with this, with this. That's called long-term potentiation. That means the potential for them to fire becomes more and more probable the more that they fire together. So when something fires together, it wires together. Now take pain and emotion and an activity and a situation. It's a very simple one. I bent over, I lifted a chair and I hurt my back. I bent over, lifted a chair, hurt my back. It was on a Tuesday, it was the middle of winter, it was snowing. Bent over, hurt me back, lifted a chair, middle of winter, it was snowing. Now there's similar kind of association. If the doctor tells you he sees a scan and it shows degenerative changes, an MRI scan has a disc bulge, from that moment that you bent over, you lifted a chair in the middle of winter and it was a Tuesday and it hurt your back and you felt frustrated and fearful on that Tuesday when it was snowing, you bent over to lift the chair on your back and the doctor's told you you've got a scan, there's a degenerative disc. Can you see how the fear and frustration linked with that become attached neurochemically, so they're firing with it? Now if you keep repeating the pathway, just like Smelly Margaret from Darlington, you automate the brain's reaction. And repeating that with the same high intensity of motion, which is what happens when pain fires with the stress response, either from one big moment of stress or lots of repeated stress, the wiring becomes very dominant in the brain and the body. And that's persistent pain. It could be an emotional situation, it could be a physical situation. The physical situation fires with emotion, the emotional situation fires with the physical feeling. Chicken and egg, which comes first, doesn't really matter. The pathway is in place. So the brain just fires it on recognition of some of the cues. Your brain fires a particular neuron, as I say, Smelly Lady from Darlington, don't think of a name. Your brain fires it anyway. Now if pain's part of that output, could pain fire without an actual injury happening? Yeah, of course it could. And we're going to change the habitual patterns around that. And that's called long-term depression of these neurons. So if one fires and there's a delay before the next one fires, that's called long-term depression of the neural pathway. Now the more that happens, there's a critical point of a delay between this, and if that time passes, the link becomes weaker. If in the meantime you're doing something else that you're choosing, and at the same time you're avoiding the old behaviour, you're detaching the two, one pathway becomes stronger, which is your chosen one, and the other one becomes weaker. You develop good habits and you break the old one. So how do we do this in practical terms? Well, people think you have to do it before the habit, you have to stop the habit. If you catch yourself biting your nails and catch yourself before the pain comes on, or catch yourself saying something and stop yourself saying it, or stop yourself feeling frustrated or angry, and how do I do that? You don't have to do any of that. You're allowed to do the behaviour that creates the pain. But rather than allowing the loop to complete, so I bent over, it hurts me back again, I'm mad about that, and that closes the loop. So the next time I see the chair, I don't lift it, it's going to hurt, I do lift it because I need it done, it hurts me back, I'm mad about that, and the loop's complete. So that being mad about it or frustrated about it is dopamine that's motivating the brain to do the same behaviour again, because you're telling it the danger signal was right that the brain gave you, and you're feeding back, yep, that's right, I want you to do that again the next time I lift the chair, without realising it. And that's the habit. So you're doing this to yourself without realising it. So that's a loop. Now in engineering terms, we've got to break that cycle, so we add something into the loop, but after you've caught yourself doing it. So if you bent over, you hurt your back, I felt the pain again, sorry, it's going to hurt, I don't want to do this, but I have to, it hurts me. As you feel the pain, as you notice the thought, as you notice the tension in your chest or the muscles, that's the point at which you insert the new behaviour. Now, if you followed an earlier set of videos about the 6 habits in 28 days, I explained how you install new behaviours, and you choose something that's very small enough that in that moment of limbic friction, when your brain and your body are telling you to say, I'm mad about this, I'm angry and I don't feel good about this, that's dopamine repeating and reinforcing for the old pathway, you choose a different behaviour. But it has to be small enough so you can have enough courage to take a step with a different behaviour. Now this creates a chain of events rather than a loop. So I've got to lift the chair, it hurts my back, it did hurt my back. It's okay. So this is a serotonergic mechanism, a calming mechanism that you're looking to install, rather than putting more adrenaline on top of the adrenaline in the system. So you're choosing a reaction after you've caught yourself experiencing pain, experiencing the frustration, experiencing the thoughts around it, and you install a new behaviour. Now the simplest behaviour, think of it in neuroscientific terms, is a gap. Is the gap that we're actually after. Lots of people get stuck in the idea of doing. Oh, what do I need to do? And I do the breathing, I do some movement, and they're actually doing it in the adrenaline state still. So it doesn't matter what you do because it's being hijacked by the person's habit. They've not actually stepped out of the habit. So you have to choose something that is calming to the system. If you don't know what that looks like for you, think of what you'd do if you were compassionately attending to somebody else who experienced just what you're experiencing. Be a kind thought, be a kind word, it'd be a slow breathing pattern, it would be moving to somewhere safely, it would be moving the area of the body where they feel pain in a small boundary that recognised where how they were feeling and the context they were in. It would allow them to express an emotion in a safe way. How do you feel? You're going to be okay. That's a really soft tone that would come automatically for others that you might not be very well trained in doing for yourself. That comes at the end, and that's the part you install. Now if you could have a gap before you do anything of 30 seconds and you feel the frustration, feel the pain, feel the not knowing what to do, and the thoughts that are popping up and the feelings that come in that moment, you sit with it 10 seconds, 15, 20, 30, 2 minutes if possible. Stay there. Then insert the new behaviour. Then insert the simplest one you can do, and neurophysiologically it's really powerful. 3 deep breaths. So in through the nose, hands on the tummy, feel the air pass through your nose, feel the air, and the hands rest on your tummy going up and down. And 3 breaths, that's all. So 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. You don't have to do anything else. If you want to choose something else, choose something else. If it wants to be a movement, choose a safe movement of that part of your body. Choose it. If you can't think or it doesn't feel safe to you, move somewhere else you could categorically say is safe. Imagine a safe movement. Express an emotion in a safe way. Use a tone of voice that's calm. Use a thought and a tone of voice. Use a breathing pattern and a movement. Use a breathing pattern and say, I feel safe. Use a breath and then say a kind word. Tie 2 or 3 things together, but start one. Choose anything you like at the end of that behaviour once you catch it. Now once you start to install 3 breaths, a kind word, it breaks the loop. So this works the next time your body or your brain comes to see that I've got to move a chair, it's going to hurt, or it does hurt. It has a choice. in that moment. It's called a reward prediction error. It can go one way or the other because you've now rewarded a new behaviour, the breathing, the kind word, the thought, rather than reinforcing the other. So the dopamine pathway is reinforced for a good behaviour and denied, withdrawn from the old behaviour. Now you think of dopamine resetting, there's literature that say it takes about 4 weeks. So it can be hard, definitely in the first 2 weeks. But again, that's almost like an addiction program, dopamine, where they starve people completely of it. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about making the limbic friction with each of these things small, so at least you can commit to something, but just in a small way. So yes, there might be a resistance, but it shouldn't be like going cold turkey on an addiction program. But it's the same process. Persistent pain is a reflection of an addiction to thought. The thought triggers the feeling triggers the thoughts. They're both uncomfortable, so it triggers a behaviour to get out of it. The behaviour tends to be repetitively used and overused, and the behaviour creates pain. So the next time the cue appears, even the thought or feeling starts to trigger pain, so the person can't use the behaviour anymore. The organism gets its loop, and the person can't consciously release that tension with the old behaviour or any other behaviour. It keeps them stuck. It can sound complicated if you almost look down the rabbit hole of the neuroscience, behaviour change, almost the spiritual bit of waiting and feeling your feelings. But it is a simple process. It's very counterintuitive, and that's why your brain will tell you it's complicated and I can't do it and never work. Have a go. If it's too much to look at bad habits, have a go at practicing good habits and look at the videos about that. But if you can feel confident enough to start to install a new behaviour just at the end of recognising when you've done something that you maybe judge as bad, or you choose to be linked to the pain behaviours you have, that's where the moment of power occurs. The gap is actually the most important part. The behaviour you use is important because it can be thought, feeling, movement or breath, but the intent behind it, if it's authentically calming, categorically calming, and it comes at the end of a gap that allows you to not fire the habitual pathway, then you'll be amazed at the recovery that you can make. If you've got any questions about this video, please ask. If you think I haven't explained it as well as I could, or you want it presented in a different way, I'll do my best to do it. If you can grasp this and then apply it and see the benefits of it, it almost opens a window so that you can control your own recovery at a pace that suits you, but it is possible. If you're interested in looking at the neuroscience of addiction and dopamine, the effects of dopamine and breaking habits, Dr. Andrew Huberman has an amazing YouTube channel that I'll put a link in the information below, so you can dive into this even deeper if it's something that really interests you.